Lise brief karakia. Ete whanau, whai te maturanga kia marama, kia whai ta ke nā mahi katoa, tu maia, tu kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tato ia tato katoa. For this gathering, seek knowledge for understanding, have purpose in all that you do, stand tall, be strong. Let us show respect for each other. Very appropriate for today. Thank you very much. INZBC, I will not tell you very much about it because you can find it on the website. Just to say it has three key purposes. It exists for three key purposes: to lobby and inform government on trade-related matters, to disseminate information and know-how on doing business between the two countries. And the third purpose is to facilitate business development on behalf of members through leveraging networks. And those are the three core purposes that INZBC actually exists for. It holds regular industry events, calling on specialists and ministers. And those of you who had the opportunity to attend the summit this year in June, you would have witnessed that we even did first time ever was the hybrid summit, which was highly successful and very well attended. So this is an opportunity for Wellington people, Wellington business especially, to actually reignite your passion for business, look for opportunities. And today's event is meant to provide you with some ideas and some keeping your thinking hats on to see how IT sector within New Zealand and within India can actually connect with.
Very good morning. I'm very happy to be joining you over breakfast to discuss opportunities in IT sector with India. This is a small interactive business session, basically to create awareness about the potential and opportunities in the sector. This is also supposed to be a networking exercise to reach out to people in Wellington who deal in this sector. I'm very happy that Wellington Chamber of Commerce, India New Zealand Business Council, Duco Consultancy, Sun IT have joined this gathering as partners. I am also thankful to all participants representing corporate sector, representing the New Zealand government and other agencies who are joining this morning. Today, we are at a point when there is increasing convergences between our two countries in all fields. I would give example of the dialogues which we had only this month. This month we began on 5th November with a virtual talk between two foreign ministers. We had India New Zealand cyber dialogue. We had one event on pharmaceutical opportunities in pharmaceutical sector. Early this week, we launched New Zealand Center at IIT Delhi for research collaboration, under which US $100,000 will be provided for 10 research proposals. And today we are discussing the possibilities and connections in IT sector. This is only a month. So you can see behind the scene, though we have been struck by COVID-19, we have remained active to the extent possible. And that gives us new opportunities to take the relationship to a higher level. Today's topic is India's IT sector and its Kiwi connection. I see Kiwi connection at three levels. One is, of course, trade in services. The trade in telecommunications, computer services, and IT is always amongst the top 5 service exports between the two countries. That's one connection. The second connection is the presence of well-known Indian companies. They have been maintaining their offices in New Zealand for last 15 years. So you have Infosys, you have HCL, you have TCS, you have Tech Mahindra, and there are several other companies which are present here during last 1 decade, and they are expanding, they are consolidating their presence here. The third connection, and about which Mr. Sunit Prakash has recently written, is the transfer of skilled personnel from India to New Zealand, which started in 1980s. And by now, when we talk about IT landscape in New Zealand, we cannot think of IT landscape in New Zealand without the presence of Indian personnel. There has been huge growth during these uncertain times, especially in sector. And as some people have told me, some companies in this sector have seen huge growth during last 1 year, because it's time for digital economy. In the post-COVID-19 world, the salience and importance of digital economy is going to grow. I see 4 opportunities in this sector. One is I see the further increase in service exports from India, and vice versa, as we march towards enhanced role of digital economy in overall economy globally. The second possibility and the opportunity would be further expansion and consolidation of the companies which are already present. During last 1 or 2 years, we have also seen the entry of new companies like Ola, or Ola is a ride sharing platform, and Zomato in food delivery service. The third area is, of course, entry of skilled manpower in IT and technology sector. As New Zealand opens up to the world, during 18 months, there was hiatus of people coming in the sector. But as New Zealand opens to the world, I see another phase of the people coming in this area, as industry has been feeling shortages. I have possibility for Indian IT companies to look beyond New Zealand and also do something in Pacific Island countries. I know it's a small market, but you are here, and New Zealand can be used as a base to reach out to Pacific Island, the countries. So New Zealand, you are already here. Sitting here, you can advise your headquarters to about the possibilities of entry into 16, 18 Pacific Island countries. And there could be no better place to enter those countries than New Zealand. Thank you very much for joining this breakfast session.
A bit on what the Chamber does. So we support businesses by keeping them informed, and with training, courses, conferences, coaching, employer services, and recruitment. We facilitate networking opportunities and organize events and trade delegations. We represent business interests. Throughout the pandemic, we've been part of the conversation with decision makers in government, advocating for policies that are best for business. Last week, we had the Wellington Export Awards, and businesses were picked for their exceptional business practices. This event really does embody all of our values, both supporting and representing outstanding local businesses, whilst also facilitating the network that brings them together. So the Chamber is one of the oldest commercial organizations in New Zealand, established in the 1850s. So John Plymmer, so he of the Plymmer statue fame with his dog at the bottom of Plymmer Steps, he was a foundation member of the Chamber of Commerce. And at that time, members wanted improvements in infrastructure, and the wharf was built. Some things haven't changed. We still have infrastructure challenges, and the Chamber is heavily involved in getting LGWM. Let's get Wellington moving. So it's been exhilarating for me to have experienced our city's transformation into the world's most livable city, coolest little capital, and Auckland becoming an incredibly diverse, multicultural city. Of course, COVID-19 and the lockdowns have undone some of that. And from a Chamber point of view, we want to see the buzz and the vibrancy and the energy back into the city. But one of the half-full glass aspects of the pandemic has been the explosion in Zoom. So where you're physically located doesn't matter. This has been great for us because the tyranny of distance goes away. It's a lot easier, for example, to engage Silicon Valley investors in NZ tech startup opportunities. For them, we were further than the dark side of the moon, but we are just another Zoom call now. So today, as the High Commissioner said, we have the Indian diaspora in every sector of the New Zealand workforce. High-tech exports as a proportion of manufactured exports are about 10% in both India and New Zealand. Tech is about 8% of GDP in both countries. And our tech sector is on track to become New Zealand's biggest export industry, worth over $16 billion by 2030. All of this is part of a super diverse New Zealand. So looking forward to tomorrow, some things to think about. How can we improve networking and connections for better business opportunities and professional outcomes? How can we maximize opportunities for IT professionals to help with the skill mismatch that all of us face today, that you referred to, Your Excellency? It's easier for someone who's already in the industry to be upskilled to cloud migration or cybersecurity or machine learning or whatever it is if they're already in the industry. And this will also reduce the out-migration, losing highly skilled staff overseas. How do we ensure that we are leveraging the cognitive diversity that we have, different perspectives, different ways of working and thinking? How do we collaborate better? As most computing is now cloud-based and customers are more used to project teams being in other jurisdictions, there'll be many more opportunities between New Zealand tech businesses and Indian IT majors, including exports to third countries like the Pacific, but certainly much further beyond.
So in 2018, probably July, August 2018, I decided to start up my own consulting company, which was Duco Consultancy. And who was to know that within 18 months we will be faced with COVID and all the unprecedented times that we have seen for a very long time, for a startup like us. So 18 months or less into a startup, and we were faced with massive shutdowns of borders, lockdowns of boundaries within New Zealand, and we had signed up to commitments with our clients. So on the one side we had our clients and our commitments, and on the other hand we had the human capital, which is what we provide in terms of services in there. So and Duco Consultancy had to think very quickly on our feet and expand. And as it happens with every few challenges comes opportunities, and we leverage those opportunities. So we started looking at human capital, not just within New Zealand, but also from Australia, from US, and obviously India was our absolutely biggest savior. We got an amazing experience working in India in terms of setting up our offices, all our clearances, support from the High Commission when we needed it, support from the ministries there, and you won't believe we set up 100 people global delivery center in India, plus in Australia and US, but India was the biggest human capital source for us. And with the borders being closed, we needed to make sure that the resources that were working could be based in New Delhi or the National Capital Region, as we call it, and the surrounding regions, or basically they could be based in Wellington. And very quickly, whether it was public sector clients for us or they were private clients in Auckland, it just did not matter where the resources were. There were so many initiatives that had to be delivered, that organizations just leveraged remote resources. Obviously, we had to keep a lot of considerations in mind. So the cultural assimilation, the security aspects of data, privacy, enabling the technology, making sure the communication and the right level of training was there. People understood how to communicate with in the New Zealand work environment, the right level of supervision, adherence to timelines. So a lot of factors and considerations had to be put in place to ensure that that we delivered for our clients on budget and on time. So those were very, very important things for us. And we put a special program in place whereby we were blending onshore resources and the offshore resources together. Surprisingly, all of them working remotely. So whether they were Auckland resource, Wellington resource, or the resources in the US or India, they were in the same meeting, but we made sure there was the right balance in each team, or scrum as we call it in the agile way of working. And very quick.
So look, digital disruption is fundamentally influencing and reshaping the boundaries and configuration of every industry that we know today. The prime concern for every business and government is how do you navigate that disruption successfully? So as enterprises focus on reconfiguring their businesses, emphasis is helping them embrace that change in this digital era by partnering with our clients here in New Zealand and also overseas to co-create and co-innovate and steer them successfully through that journey. And as Chandran said, with our borders being closed for some time, we see a further reduction in the need to be physically located together and more acceptance for virtual teams that can deliver from the office, from home, from different cities, different countries, and now even continents, which really further amplifies the role that Infosys can play by improving the platform's remote access security and enabling that remote working and the connections between New Zealand companies and a far wider, larger talent pool globally, but also creating new export opportunities and markets. So a little bit about Infosys. It was established in 1981 with over 40 years of service. We are now present in over 50 countries. Annual turnover of just under 15 billion US per annum. We have over 280,000 employees that rapidly is just increasing every day. And we have approximately 1,700 hopefully happy clients globally. But I think the important thing is that we have reserved and invested up to 500 million US in innovation funds that here in New Zealand we've been able to leverage with our clients to the mutual benefit for both ourselves. And a couple of other quick facts about Infosys. It was the first Indian IT services company to be listed on NASDAQ, the first to offer employee shares, and the first to meet its carbon neutral goals in double quick time, and perhaps probably the first IT services company to have green campuses not only in India, but across the geographies that we are present in. So how do we bring this closer to home? So Infosys New Zealand was first established in 2009. and we have expanded in New Zealand and the region through organic growth, but also a number of acquisitions. Like in 2011, we acquired the GNI Software Solutions business. We're as local as can be, contributing significantly to the New Zealand GDP and technology through a full structure organisation here based in New Zealand. We have operations in Auckland, in Wellington, Tauranga, Whangarei, and other remote locations. Just from a size and scale perspective, from a New Zealand angle, we've got approximately 600 staff supporting our New Zealand clients. It's about a 50-50 mix of in-country between Wellington and Auckland, other locations, and then some nearshore in Australia and offshore from Indian locations. And for us, New Zealand's a very strategic market. New Zealand punches above its weight around innovation, and being geographically isolated, New Zealand really drives that cutting edge technology, innovation and creation that can be replicated globally. So we've got partnerships exclusive to New Zealand that focuses on that collaboration and increasing our contribution to Aotearoa. We also have had New Zealand government representatives and NZTE representatives have visited our head office in Bangalore in India on several occasions to talk trade and how do we increase digital adoption between both countries.
And my first induction into New Zealand was when I came over, was transferred here to set up Mahindra in New Zealand, and realized pretty quickly it's such a relationship market that people, everyone knows everyone, and you're kind of wondering what do you need to do differently to cut through. You may have all the values, you may have all the innovation, all the capability that you can bring to the table, but something comes in the way. So I think at that stage, it was a kind of realization that partnerships and collaborations and ecosystems is critical to align and unleash value over a period of time. So at the time, we partnered with a local firm in optimization. We had success with a large government account, Department of Corrections. And in case you're wondering, at the time, we had about 100 people coming over from India and changed the landscape of Lambton Key completely. So I've been very lucky in that sense to be involved with the trade delegations with the Prime Ministers, taking New Zealand innovation overseas, working with trade and enterprise, working with Callahan Innovation, working with Creative HQ, working with Ice House and the incubators to understand New Zealand has some amazing innovation which needs home and a channel to express itself. And on the other side, countries like India do have massive talent pool. 500 million people from India are under 30 years of age. So you can imagine the kind of thirst, hunger, need for that talent to find home. And that's where this topic is very close to my heart. A little bit about, I want to keep to time. So a little bit about Datacom. It was founded in 1965, before any Indian IT company was formed. So even before the very first Indian company was set up. If opportunities, they've always been, like Chand and Pat and others outlined. The key thing is cultural considerations, understanding that values and purpose alignment, understanding the psychology. What could be a transactional opportunity may come to nothing if it is just about personal greed. So transcending that greed, looking at true community impact, not just in statements, looking at that pool of 500 million Indians who are under 30 years of old, who need leadership, who need guidance, who need opportunities to realize their human potential. How can New Zealand innovation, New Zealand technology business like ours and many others, good businesses can play a role? And vice versa, how can the talent shortage that New Zealand has, how can India play a critical role in addressing those needs so New Zealand is able to realize its vision, not just as the largest tech exporter by 2030, as Karan pointed out, but also delivering sustained value to the rest of the world. So I'll be pretty much looking forward to that day where technology is spoken in the same breath as democracy, cricket, Bollywood between India and New Zealand relationships, and values and purpose and cultural alignment beyond transactions is probably something that is very critical for us to look for.
With that, 7 common themes in 7 minutes. So theme number 1, they all had STEM degrees, but wait, there's more. They had 2 STEM degrees. People from India would recognize some of these logos: VJTI, IIT Kanpur, IIT Bombay, and the Indian Statistical Institute. So they all had double STEM degrees. They all had relevant work experience from the people that we spoke to, in addition to working in Bombay, Delhi, Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad. They worked in the US, they worked in Europe, they worked in the Middle East. And for some reason, the systems like DEC, Wang, and IBM, they come to my memory from the conversations that we've had. And they came with relevant work experience. Are you talking about pastoral care? Pastoral care. This is really, 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 really interesting. There were 2 organizations that were really clued up. We had Baxt and we had Computer People. These 2 organizations, they were well connected in the industry over here. They knew what skills were required, what needed to be done. They had agents, or they had a direct presence in India. They identified the people, they shoulder tapped them, they interviewed them, they selected them, they bought the tickets, they organized the visas, they got them over here, and they placed them into roles, and they looked after them. Not all of them came that way, but those who did come that way, their career trajectory is worth looking. That has informed some of our submissions into the immigration, the Productivity Council is conducting an inquiry of. New Zealand gained 2 for 1.
So New Zealand got a 2-for-1 deal with the Indian IT professionals because their wives were either graduates or postgraduates in accountancy, commerce, or physics, and one was a food scientist. Some had professional qualifications and industry certifications. With these exceptional qualifications and skills, many retrained in preparation for life in New Zealand and started as programmers, and then moved into systems and network administration, business analysis, database, project and program management, procurement, and big data. So examples of some organisations that they worked with included the IRD, KPMG being on their advisory team, Otago School of Medicine, and the National Bank. It's incredible that these women not only worked, but also raised families.
I'd like to point out is who studies or restudies and requalifies from whatever it is that they study life in New Zealand to enter IT. Partha, you know who I'm talking about.
So parents in India invest in their children's education, and New Zealand has reaped the rewards. Indian parents in New Zealand have invested in their children's education and have paid it forward, not necessarily to India or to New Zealand, but worldwide. So children in our research subjects are completing or have completed tertiary education. Some are lawyers, some are training to be doctors, others have double degrees or more than 1 tertiary qualification, and a few have graduated with PhDs. Some, but not all, are in IT professionals. Some are working in New Zealand, others are overseas.
So when you look at the contribution of India to New Zealand, it goes beyond just sending IT professionals. The education system that was there in India that contributed to what New Zealand is possibly today. That is an amazing, amazing investment or contribution.
So apart from the initial culture shock and the weather in Wellington, the overall experience of living in New Zealand has been a positive one. The first impressions were as of a peaceful country with friendly, honest and sincere citizens. The workplace more relaxed than India, with freedom to work without being micromanaged and being appreciated. And there was no expectation in the office to be in the office after 5 p.m. unless there was a crisis. So that gave, you know, a much better work-life balance. So giving back. So Indian IT Professionals has also given back to the community in New Zealand, have given back to the community. So if we just look at New Zealand, as you know, Gawun is on the board of the Chamber of Commerce and devotes his time to mentoring, service and business mentor New Zealand. Vinny Venkatesh, who's not present today, is president of Angel IQ. Angel HQ. I suppose a bit of an IQ thing there too. In 2015, with his wife Minnie Bata, Sarthi set up an immensely successful hospital in Rwanda, employing over 170 staff, and that includes 50 doctors and treating over 500 patients a day.